The first thing I heard was laughter, not the sterile kind you expect near a hospital bed. No, it was Mariah's, light, carefree, and terrifyingly distant from grief. My eyes hadn't even opened yet, but my heart had. I stayed still, breathing shallowly, letting her words crawl across the room like a confession. I didn't expect it to feel this freeing, she said, her voice a shade above a whisper. It's like he stopped being a weight the moment the machines took over. Another voice responded, masculine, cocky, familiar. Harvey. Freedom suits you, babe. Now you can finish the film without him guilt-tripping you with his dialysis and deadlines. They both laughed. I didn't move, didn't blink, just memorized. Every syllable, every pause. Mariah, my wife, the one who once cried over my blood test results, the one who clutched my hand in that waiting room when the doctor said temporary coma. She stayed up 3 nights in a row by my side, or so I thought. But now she was joking about my absence as if it were a relief. And Harvey, my former classmate, now a glorified cameraman with an ego problem, the man I let into our house, who drank my whiskey and called me brother. I closed my eyes tighter, let the monitors beep over the sound of my heartbeat, pretended to still be in that coma so they could keep talking. They did, for 10 more minutes. Harvey had the nerve to say, once we get the next grant, we'll go to Bali, just us, no Nicholas, no guilt. Mariah giggled and said, as long as he stays under, I'll feel like I can breathe. They left. I waited. Hours later, a nurse walked in, adjusted my IV, and whispered, "You're lucky, Nicholas, you made it through." I didn't answer, not because I couldn't, because I needed time. By the next morning, I'd formulated a plan. I blinked once. Then again. I told the nurse, "Don't tell my wife I'm awake yet." She looked confused. I smiled. Just a little surprise, she likes surprises. When the doctor came in, I asked for my discharge papers early. "Mr. Wallace, you just regained consciousness. I have recovery arrangements already, please prepare the release." I lied, of course, but it wasn't the first time someone in this marriage lied. That evening, Mariah walked in with Kathleen, her friend and often the voice of reason. Kathleen gasped. "You're awake?" Mariah's face paled. "Nicholas." I smiled warmly. "You look surprised." Mariah hesitated. I didn't expect you to be up so soon." I replied, "People come back when they have unfinished business." Kathleen sat in the corner, silent. Eyes lowered, guilty. She knew, not everything, but enough. Over the next 2 days, I let Mariah believe I had memory gaps. She treated me like a guest in my own body, smiled sweetly, played caring wife, and every time she said, "I'm just glad you're okay," my chest burned colder. What she didn't know was that my hospital bracelet had a modified chip inside. It recorded sound, it stored timestamps. I had every word she said while she thought I was unconscious, every joke, every plan, every betrayal. The apartment she came home to every night, it was mine, leased under my name, paid up front. When she was busy filming with Harvey, I called the landlord and terminated the agreement. The movers were booked for Thursday at noon. Wednesday night, I made her favorite meal, steak, wine, the exact layout she liked for her Instagram reels. She walked in, surprised. "You cooked?" "I'm grateful to be alive," I said. We ate. She smiled. Played the part. After she fell asleep, I packed everything, just not for her, for me. By sunrise, everything was in motion. Her ring light was gone, her perfumes boxed, the vanity she'd set up in my study, empty. I left only a folded piece of paper on the marble counter. "Mariah, you said you felt free when I was unconscious, so I've decided to return the favor. The apartment is no longer yours. The money, that was my silence funding your escape. But now I'm awake. Let's see how free you feel without me." I turned the key in the lock one final time, walked out. I didn't slam the door. I didn't need to. The silence said enough. My name is Nicholas Wallace, 34 years old, video editor by trade, private strategist by necessity. Most people think a coma changes a man. It doesn't. It just presses pause on everything fake around him. When I woke up, I wasn't reborn. I was reminded. I met Mariah 6 years ago at a film school networking event. I didn't even want to be there. I was working 2 jobs, editing wedding reels by day, digitizing tapes for a failing documentary house by night. But I promised Kathleen, my cousin, and only family in the city, that I'd show face at least once that month. I still remember how Mariah introduced herself. "I'm not a director, I'm a feeling." Everyone laughed. I didn't. She didn't care. That's what drew me in. Mariah had that magnetic recklessness about her, the kind of woman who walked barefoot through galleries because she said shoes dulled her creativity. We weren't a perfect match. I was all hard lines and quiet hours, she was all light flares and chaos, but we fit, like sharp stones in a pocket, uncomfortable but necessary. She moved in 6 months later. My one bedroom was barely big enough for my editing desk and mattress, but Mariah made it feel cinematic. Fairy lights, Polaroids of places she'd never been, a broken 8mm camera she called her muse. I gave up half my wardrobe space without protest, gave up most of my sleep too because she liked brainstorming at 2 a.m. I didn't mind, I loved her, even when she spent more money on props than groceries, even when she left our bathroom looking like a beauty brand exploded. Kathleen warned me once, "Nick, she's in love with how you make her feel, not who you are." But I told her to let me figure it out. Maybe I should have listened. After a year, I sold my camera gear and funded Mariah's first short film. She promised it would be a tribute to me. When it came out, there was a thank you in the credits, right above the list of sponsors she met at Harvey's launch party. Ah, Harvey. The kind of man who quotes Bukowski badly and smells like spiced gin and second chances. He entered our lives as a collaborator when Mariah wanted to reshoot the ending of her film. I didn't trust him from day one, not because of jealousy, because of his timing. He always showed up when we were weakest. When my mother passed, Harvey was there, not for me, for Mariah. "Grief needs a muse," he'd said, placing his hand a little too low on her back. When I got COVID and had to quarantine her for 2 weeks, he brought her smoothies, for strength. Mariah said I was overreacting, Kathleen didn't. But every time I confronted her, she'd cry, say things like, "Why don't you believe in me?" or, "You're supposed to be the only one who understands me." And like an idiot, I'd fold, because I wanted to, because the thought of losing her scared me more than any red flag could. Then came the accident. It wasn't cinematic, it wasn't tragic, it was stupid. I was crossing a street outside our apartment, tired, distracted, replying to a client on my phone. The driver ran a red light, I hit the windshield, then the pavement, fractured ribs, mild brain bleed, 4 days unconscious. When I woke up, my world didn't shift, it clarified. Mariah didn't know I'd heard her that day in the hospital. Her voice said, "It feels like I can breathe without him." That wasn't a confession, it was a decision, a quiet declaration that she'd already emotionally left. The thing about betrayal is it doesn't come like thunder, it's not loud, it's quiet, whispered between people who think you can't hear them, confirmed in the way someone doesn't flinch when you're in pain. When I got home from the hospital, I noticed everything. My shelves are filled with new books, books I didn't read, my vinyls boxed in the hallway. Mariah said it was to make space for camera-ready walls. I nodded. She didn't notice how tight my jaw had gotten. She tried to play nurse for 3 days, brought soup I didn't ask for, fluffed pillows I didn't need, but at night, when she thought I was asleep, she took calls with Harvey. "Don't worry, babe," she whispered once, "he still thinks we're just friends." Kathleen visited on the 4th day. She looked around and said, "This doesn't feel like your place anymore." I smiled sadly and replied, "That's because it's not mine anymore." "Not really." She asked if I was going to leave. I told her I wasn't sure yet. But deep down, I was. Mariah was talented, I won't deny that. She could turn a silent moment into a monologue, but she also weaponized vulnerability. Every time she talked about how hard it was to grow up poor, how she never had stability, she used it as a shield, against criticism, against accountability. I used to admire that strength. Now I saw it for what it was, a rehearsed trauma loop, a script she edited every year to make herself the protagonist. Harvey kept sending her voice notes. Once, she left her phone unlocked while showering. I played one. "Can't wait for us to be official," he said. "Once Nicholas settles somewhere else, let's just go public." I should have been angry, but all I felt was relief. Relief that I wasn't crazy, that my gut wasn't lying, that I wasn't the villain in a romance gone stale, I was the mark in a con gone quiet. That night, I called Kathleen and asked her to find a storage unit. Then I called my lawyer, then I called the landlord. Everything was in my name, the apartment, the bills, the lease, the silence. Mariah wasn't just losing me, she was losing the safety net she'd mistaken for entitlement. The night before I moved everything out, I looked at her while she was editing clips on her laptop. She looked radiant, backlit by her ring light, framed like a dream. And I thought, this is what she wanted me to be, a prop in her frame, a shadow in her story. So I gave her what she wanted, a life without me, unfiltered, unfunded, unforgiven. The day I packed my things was the day Mariah called her mother for the first time in weeks. "I think he's slipping into some depressive loop," she said, while microwaving a vegan lasagna I bought. "He barely talks anymore." I was sitting 10 feet away, watching her say those words while rehearsing the look of a concerned wife in case Kathleen dropped by. That's what she did. Rehearsed. She never truly reacted. It was all aesthetic emotion. I didn't bother correcting her. Let her believe I was spiraling. Let her feel comfortable. Because comfort makes people sloppy, and I needed Mariah to be sloppy. She left her Google Drive open that evening, her collaborative folder with Harvey. I copied every document and screenshot onto a USB. Their budget proposals, their pitch deck to a streaming platform, even an NDA she asked him to sign. The pitch email read, "This series explores betrayal from the POV of someone left behind, based on my personal experiences." She was going to turn my coma into content. Harvey even had the nerve to reply, "We can call it While He Slept. Sounds poetic." That night, I couldn't sleep, not because of heartbreak, but because the version of Mariah I once loved was fully dead, and she killed her herself. I was lying next to a stranger who wore her face and stole her memories. Kathleen noticed the change before anyone else. She dropped by with groceries and asked me, "Nick, are you going to retaliate?" I replied, "I'm going to edit." Edit? Yeah, like any good post-production job, I'm just cutting the useless scenes, resequencing the lies, and exporting a new ending. Kathleen blinked, then smirked. "You always were the best editor in school." I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes, because this wasn't a school project. This was my life, one I had handed to someone who printed her betrayal on my paper. Mariah's story was fiction, mine would be the raw footage. The apartment was quiet the day Mariah realized her key no longer worked. She arrived around 4 p.m., holding a fresh bouquet of eucalyptus and a new tripod, only to find the lock had been changed. She tried again, then pulled out her phone and called me. "Nicholas, did something happen to the lock?" I was 3 blocks away, watching from the cafe window, stirring a coffee I didn't even like. I answered calmly, "Yeah, I had it replaced." There was a pause. "Why?" I sipped. "Safety reasons. You said you felt free when I was unconscious. I figured I should support that feeling." Another P. Us. Longer this time. "You're joking, right?" "No," I said, voice steady. "Not even a little." Mariah's voice dropped into that tone she used when cornered but pretending not to be. "Nicholas, where's my stuff? Everything you personally purchased is boxed and stored in a unit on 8th Street. I texted you the code. You have 7 days to pick it up." I ended the call before she could respond. I watched her stand there, stunned, hands frozen around her phone like she didn't recognize the world anymore. That made 2 of us. An hour later, Kathleen texted me. "Kathleen." She came to my place crying. "What happened?" Me. I finally listened to her. She said she wanted freedom. I gave it to her. Kathleen. "Nick? She's saying you locked her out without warning." Me. "That's because she only hears herself, not what she says." Mariah had spent the past year calling our home temporary. She'd tell people in interviews it was his space, not mine. She'd upload vlogs titled "Living in Limbo," when you share a life you didn't choose. Every time she pressed publish, I'd pretend not to notice. But I saw it. All of it. She was the one who made the breakup cinematic. I just gave her the wide shot. That night, she showed up outside the apartment again, this time with Harvey. I watched them from the hallway monitor. Harvey stood behind her, arms crossed, chin tilted like he was auditioning for a role. Mariah pounded the door. "Nicholas, we need to talk." I turned up the volume and said through the speaker, "There's nothing left to say." "Nicholas," she said, and the sweetness in her voice had jagged edges, "you're being cruel. You called me dead weight while I was dying, Mariah. Cruelty is subjective. Harvey stepped forward, puffing his chest like he mattered. You can't just lock someone out without legal notice. I smiled to myself and tapped the intercom again. And you can't sleep with your creative partner on a lease agreement either, Harvey, but you did. Silence. I continued. This apartment is in my name. I paid the deposit. I funded the remodel. Your name's on nothing except a failed pitch deck. Mariah's voice shook. That's not fair. I cut her off. Fair? Mariah, you used to whisper your dreams into my chest, now you whisper them to him. Don't talk to me about fair. I ended the feed. The next morning, Kathleen arrived with coffee and quiet. She sat across from me at the bare kitchen island and said nothing for 2 minutes straight. Then she exhaled. Was that necessary? I didn't flinch. She started building a future that didn't include me while using everything I gave her. She just didn't expect me to notice. Kathleen nodded. She says you're twisting things. I have recordings. She says you're being vengeful. I laughed, but there was no joy in it. That's the part she can't stand, being treated the way she treated others. Kathleen didn't argue. She sipped her drink and finally asked, "What now?" I stared at the wall where Mariah used to hang her storyboard sketches. Now? I wait. People like her always come back, not for love, but to rewrite the narrative. That return came faster than I expected. 3 days later, Mariah posted a video titled, "When Love Becomes Control." It was beautifully edited, full of soft piano, glowing backlight, and voiceover lines like, "I lost myself in a relationship where silence became louder than shouting." It got 89,000 views in 24 hours. The comments were predictable. At DreamGirl84, "She's so brave, what a toxic man." At Creative Soul, "I've been in there, sending you love, Mariah." At Film Queen 2.0, "I knew Nicholas was insecure the moment she went viral. Typical." I didn't respond. I didn't even watch the full video. But Kathleen did. She texted me 3 words. "She's rewriting history." I knew, but I wasn't rushing to fix it. Why? Because people who lie for validation always overplay their hand. And she did. 2 nights later, Harvey's ex-girlfriend DM'd me on Instagram, @lucia.in. "Motion, you don't know me, but I was with Harvey when he met Mariah. He was still with me when he started working with her." She included screenshots, time-stamped photos, even voice notes from Harvey bragging to a friend. "She thinks I'm in love with her process. I'm in love with the way she spends other people's money." I saved every file. The next day, I posted a private video. No background music, no ring light, just me, a mic, and my timeline of evidence. I didn't name names. I didn't need to. I let the truth sit unpolished, like raw footage. I called it, "While I slept," the footage she didn't use. Within 2 hours, it trended. By nightfall, people were quoting her hospital confession word for word. Someone even clipped her exact line. "It feels freeing without him." Paired with the ICU footage I recovered from my nurse friend, it was damning. The comments turned. At Truthcut, "She lied," and monetized it. At Final Frame, "He didn't edit her out, he just stopped hiding the truth." At Silent Realist, "Harvey's voice memo though, she really picked a snake over a man." Mariah went silent online for 72 hours, then deleted all her posts referencing me. Kathleen told me she tried to call her, but Mariah didn't answer. I didn't rejoice. I didn't celebrate. I felt clean. Harvey, on the other hand, went ballistic. He tried emailing me a cease and desist. My lawyer sent back a 2-line response. "Your client should consult the Mirror before threatening defamation." Attached was the audio clip of him saying, "If this tanks, I'll just blame her emotional instability." It wasn't just a scandal anymore, it was exposure therapy, for both of them. 2 days after that, Mariah showed up at Kathleen's apartment. Kathleen called me first. "She's crying, looks awful." I said nothing. She says she didn't know Harvey was that manipulative. I asked, "Did she apologize?" "No." "Then let her cry." I wasn't cold, I was finished. Kathleen, bless her patience, told Mariah everything was documented. That even if she deleted her videos, people had already archived them. That her betrayal wasn't just personal, it was public now. Mariah asked her, "Do you think Nicholas hates me?" Kathleen answered, "I think he stopped loving the version of you that betrayed him, and that's not the same as hate." The next week, Mariah emailed me a long letter. No subject, just text. She wrote about pressure, about fear, about how she lost herself trying to become someone people liked more than loved. She said Harvey was a mistake, said she missed us, said she didn't mean what she said in the hospital. I didn't reply, because I remembered what she said before she knew I was awake. She felt free, so I let her stay that way. There's a strange kind of silence that follows betrayal. Not the silence of peace, but the kind that rings in your ears like static. That's what I lived in for days. I'd stare at my phone for hours without touching it. I'd sit at the edge of my bed, dressed but unable to leave the room. Not because I was confused, because I was hollow. It wasn't just Mariah's voice in the hospital that echoed in my head. It was everything she'd ever said before that, every time she called me her safe place, her calm center, her only home. Words she weaponized, and now, every single one of them, felt like a script from a role she'd rehearsed. I didn't hate her, that was the worst part. I hated that I didn't. I hated that when I saw her crying in Kathleen's apartment hallway through the door camera, a part of me still wanted to open the door, still wanted to ask, "Did you eat?" Still wanted to believe that the woman I fell in love with was buried under the wreckage, but she wasn't buried, she was gone, long gone. Mariah didn't just hurt me with her words, she fractured my ability to trust my own judgment. I had seen the signs, heard the excuses, felt the distance, but I still believed her. And now every smile from a stranger felt like a setup, every warm gesture made me flinch inside. Kathleen noticed it first. "You're quieter than usual," she said one night as we walked through a bookstore, "like your silence has silence." I shrugged. "I'm trying not to let my instincts die." She tilted her head. "Meaning?" "Meaning I don't want to become the kind of man who assumes everyone is lying just because one person was." She nodded slowly, then added, "That's harder than it sounds." It was. Every time someone asked me how I was, I lied. I said things like, "Better now," or "Glad it's over." But the truth was messier. The truth was, I missed her. Not the woman she became, but the one I believed in. I missed the sound of her typing in the middle of the night, the way she danced barefoot in the kitchen when no one was watching. I missed the way she used to trace my scar when she thought I was asleep. But I also knew missing someone doesn't mean you should let them back in. One night I pulled out a folder I hadn't opened since the hospital, Mariah's short film proposal, the one she claimed. Ed was inspired by me, the title was still the same, Still Breathing. I flipped through the pages, looking at the scenes she storyboarded, the voiceovers she recorded. One line stood out. "Love, when left unspoken, becomes a mirror, and sometimes the reflection shows someone you never wanted to be." I couldn't tell if that was meant for me or for her. Harvey, of course, had vanished from the internet, deleted his accounts, shut down his production page, but people still tagged him in clips from my video. He became a joke overnight. #HarveyCut was trending for 3 days straight, used by creators to show how liars reframe truth. Mariah, though, tried to shift back. She posted a quote one afternoon. "Healing isn't linear, forgive people, even if they're not sorry." The irony nearly made me laugh. Forgiveness isn't about being generous, it's about deciding who still gets to occupy space inside you, and I decided Mariah wouldn't, not anymore. But deciding something intellectually and feeling it emotionally, two different universes. There were nights I'd wake up from dreams where she was still beside me, dreams where we never said things we couldn't take back, where she looked at me like I mattered again. I'd lie awake afterward, eyes dry but chest heavy. There were also mornings where I'd reach for my phone instinctively, almost texting her when something small happened. A trailer drop she would have loved. A meme that mirrored a joke only we shared. I never hit send. But the urge still stung. I started therapy. Not because I was broken, but because I was tired of stitching myself together with silence. The therapist, Dr. Aslam, was a calm, deliberate woman who didn't flinch at long silences. She asked me once, what hurt more, her betrayal or your blindness to it? I didn't answer immediately, then I said, the fact that I let her define love for me. I told her everything, the way Mariah's laughter in the hospital felt like a slap, the way she crafted narratives online that made her the wounded hero, the way Harvey used grief as an entrance. I told her I wasn't Tosimians. Angry at them, I was angry at myself for believing it wouldn't happen. She said, people like Mariah are experts at making you believe your care is their oxygen, until they decide you're suffocating them. Those words stayed with me. Mariah always said I was her anchor, but what she never said was that she wanted to drift. One afternoon, I returned to the apartment to grab a storage box I'd left behind. As I walked through the echoing space, I noticed the scuff marks on the floor from where her vanity used to sit. I stood there, staring at that empty patch of wall, and felt a wave of something sharp but quiet. Regret? No. Nostalgia? Maybe. But mostly, finality. That was the moment I knew I didn't want her back. Not even the best version of her. Because the price of loving her was too high, my peace, my clarity, my ability to hear my own thoughts without wondering if they were being manipulated. Later that week, Kathleen invited me to a gallery, just a local exhibit from a mutual friend. I almost said no, but she insisted. It's time to be around art that doesn't lie to you. At the gallery, I met someone named Elise. She didn't ask about my past, didn't pretend to know my pain. She just pointed at a photograph and said, I like this one, it looks like it's holding its breath. I nodded. Sometimes I feel like I still am. She looked at me and said, then maybe it's time to exhale. We didn't exchange numbers, we didn't promise anything, but for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I had to perform my healing, I just let it exist. When I got home that night, there was an envelope slipped under my door. No name, just a note inside that read, if I said I'm sorry, would you believe me? It was Mariah's handwriting. I held the note in my hand for a full minute, then tore it in half, then into quarters, then into pieces so small, not even regret could put them back together. I flushed them down the toilet, because forgiveness doesn't always require conversation, sometimes it just needs a decision, and I had made mine. 2 months passed. Mariah hadn't posted a video since the note, her brand was collapsing quietly, followers trickling away, sponsors pulling out, collaborations getting cancelled. Harvey had resurfaced once, attempting a weak comeback with a self-published apology letter on Medium that read more like a resume. No one cared. I had started over, quietly, deliberately. I moved into a smaller apartment across town. No ring lights, no white marble counters. Just brick walls, natural light, and silence I could trust. Kathleen helped set it up. No judgment, no speeches, just support in the way only someone who's seen your worst can give. Then, out of nowhere, I got a letter from a lawyer. Mariah was suing me. Not for damages, not for the video, but for unauthorized use of shared intellectual property, specifically, the clips and audio used in While I Slept. The same video she never publicly named, the same one she never had the courage to dispute. She was claiming that since she was the subject in several scenes and was the source of the voiceover, despite it being caught on my hospital audio logs, she had partial rights to the content. The hypocrisy was breathtaking. I forwarded the document to my attorney. He read it in silence, then asked me one thing. Do you want to fight, or do you want to finish this? I didn't answer immediately, but I knew the truth. I was tired of reacting to her. I wanted it to be over, but on my terms. And if she wanted to drag me back into her curated war, I'd let her walk right into her own frame. So I responded publicly. Not with another vid. But with documents. I posted a Dropbox link titled Proof of Ownership, the real story behind While I Slept. It included time-stamped footage, release logs, email receipts, and even a written statement from Kathleen, verifying that the recordings came from my hospital ID chip, something Mariah had signed consent for when she filled out my emergency contact form. The internet doesn't care about nuance, but it worships receipts. Mariah's lawsuit collapsed in 3 days. But the twist hadn't hit yet. That came on the 4th day, when I received a message from a man named Marcus Lennox. Marcus Lennox. Nicholas, you don't know me, but I've been Mariah's manager for the past year, or was. We've ended our professional relationship. He didn't wait for a response. He sent an attachment. Inside was a spreadsheet, payment logs, dates, vendor names. One caught my eye. Creative consultation, Harvey Reid, $8,500, transaction note, quiet script outline, ICU perspective shaping. The date, 2 weeks before my accident. I felt the ground shift under me. Not because of the amount, but because of the intent. I opened more files, emails between Mariah and Harvey. They weren't just partners, they were co-architects. Mariah had started planning while he slept before I even fell unconscious. The entire narrative, her emotional rebirth, her newfound independence, was pre-written. It wasn't betrayal anymore. It was premeditated. Kathleen came over that evening. I showed her everything. She read in silence, then whispered. She was waiting for you to disappear so she could start filming her next character. I nodded. And I gave her the perfect backstory. Almost died? Emotionally neglected artist wife? She built an empire in a coma. We sat in silence. Eventually, Kathleen asked, "What are you going to do?" I stared at the drive. Expose it, but not like before, not with anger, with precision. I created a final video, but this one didn't feature her voice at all. It was just me, seated in the same hospital gown, inside a makeshift set that mimicked the ICU. It opened with, "They wrote a script before I ever fell asleep. I just woke up too early." I played no audio from her, no clips from Harvey, just screenshots, transaction records, and one final title card. This is what happens when you treat love like a storyline. I posted it and turned off my phone. The next morning, it had 2.4 million views. Harvey's ex came forward again, this time confirming that he had been rehearsing emotional beats for the project using my actual medical condition as a catalyst. Even her old classmates joined in, sharing how Mariah often said, "Tragedy makes the best character arcs." The backlash was nuclear. Mariah deleted every platform she had. Brand deals vanished overnight. She released a single text-only statement on Twitter. I lost myself trying to tell a story that was never mine to begin with. But it was too late, no one was listening. Kathleen and I sat on my balcony that night, a soft breeze between us. She said, "You finally got the last word." I shook my head. No, I just refused to let her write mine. A month after the final video, I thought it was over. I had moved on, public sympathy had faded, internet drama has found new targets, Mariah had vanished from every platform. Harvey, predictably, took a contract gig somewhere anonymous and out of reach. Kathleen was busy helping a friend with a documentary on survivor trauma, and I finally accepted a short-term editing role on a post-war interview series. I was breathing again, quietly, fully, without checking the air first. Then I got a letter. Not from lawyers, not from sponsors, from Mariah. Handwritten, 2 full pages, delivered by courier with no return address. I opened it slowly, expecting another passive-aggressive apology or veiled plea for sympathy. It wasn't. It was worse. Mariah didn't ask for forgiveness, she didn't say she was sorry, what she did instead was confess. The letter wasn't about her pain, it was about her guilt, and what she finally admitted turned everything upside down. "Nicholas, I know you've seen the footage, the audio, the timelines, but what you never knew, what I never let you know, was that Harvey didn't just collaborate with me after your accident. He caused it. I didn't plan it that way, but he told me you were crossing the street that night, said you were on the phone, distracted, said it would be the perfect time to make space. He was joking, I think. I didn't stop him, he got behind the wheel, I never told the police. You were hit less than 10 minutes later. I didn't know how bad it would be, but when I saw you lying in that bed, something inside me cracked, not from sadness, from panic, because I realized I had become something I didn't recognize. And Harvey, he leaned in, he told me we could build a narrative, he said we could take your coma and turn it into a lesson for others. I agreed. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I needed to tell you the truth. If you never want to see me again, I understand, but please know that what happened to you wasn't entirely an accident, and I let it happen. Mariah, I read it twice, then a third time. Then I sat on my bedroom floor for an hour, the letter open on the carpet, my mind floating above it like it didn't belong to me anymore. Harvey hadn't just stolen my wife. He had tried to erase me. He hadn't succeeded, but he'd come close. And Mariah, she had stood by and watched. Maybe she hadn't planned it. But she didn't stop. And then she'd crafted an entire identity on top of my unconscious body. For the first time in this whole ordeal, I felt something sharper than betrayal. I felt rage. Not loud, not fiery, cold, focused, silent. I drove to Kathleen's without warning. She opened the door and immediately knew something was wrong. "You're pale," she said. "Sit." I handed her the letter. She read it once, then again, her fingers trembled as she passed it back. "She knew," she whispered. "All this time, she knew." I nodded. "And now I know too." Kathleen looked at me carefully. "What do you want to do?" I didn't answer immediately, but my mind was already turning, not toward revenge, toward exposure. People had moved on, but they hadn't seen everything. They hadn't seen what the silence had really cost me. They hadn't seen how betrayal didn't just ruin a relationship, it rewrote reality. I started with the police. The original accident report had ruled it as a traffic incident. A driver fled the scene. No camera footage caught the plate. No follow-up. I requested the public copy under my legal right as a victim. The file confirmed what I remembered. Mid-sized black sedan, heading west, driver never identified. Harvey drove a black mid-sized BMW at the time. Kathleen confirmed it. I'd seen it, even helped him change a flat on it once. But what nailed it wasn't the car, it was the parking app he used. Kathleen, ever the archivist, had screenshots from a shared Dropbox they once used for location tagging during shoots. In one image, she'd saved GPS data from a test route taken the day I was hit. It placed Harvey 3 blocks from my intersection, 9 minutes before the accident. I collected everything: the screenshots, the email metadata, the handwriting analysis on Mariah's letter. I met with a lawyer, not to sue, to file a criminal complaint. It was no longer a story, it was attempted vehicular manslaughter. Mariah was subpoenaed as a witness. Harvey was named in the complaint. When the news broke, it spread faster than anything I'd posted before. Headlines splashed across creative networks and news aggregators. Former influencer couple implicated in alleged staged incident. ICU crash, now investigated as intentional act. Viral series, While I Slept. Maybe based on criminal cover-up. Mariah released a statement. "I made a terrible mistake. I let someone else take control of the wheel, literally and figuratively." No one bought it. Harvey was arrested 2 weeks later, denied the charges, claimed he was just joking when he made those comments to Mariah, claimed his GPS location was a coincidence, but the audio messages I'd quietly recovered, where he said he won't know what hit him, were timestamped too clearly to ignore. Mariah, to her credit, testified. She admitted what she did, publicly, under oath. After the hearing, she approached me outside the courthouse. For a second, we were just two people in a storm of flashing cameras and cold wind. "I don't expect anything from you," she said softly. I looked at her, really looked. She was thinner, older, hollow around the eyes, like regret had started eating her from the inside out. "You got what you wanted," I said. "You became the story." She flinched. "I never meant," I held up a hand. "Don't finish that sentence, we've both done enough editing to know how it ends." She nodded, then stepped back. I turned and walked away. This time without looking back. Not because it was cinematic, but because the scene was over. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't acting. 3 months after the courthouse steps, the world quieted again. Harvey was awaiting trial. His bail had been denied after the audio messages were authenticated. His lawyer attempted a plea negotiation, claiming Harvey never meant for the car to hit me, that it was just an unfortunate accident, but the judge reviewing the case had a background in victim advocacy. That defense didn't go far. Mariah disappeared from public view completely. No live stream apologies, no redemption arc, just radio silence. No one asked where she went, and she didn't try to say. And me, I didn't chase peace, I just let it grow around me. Kathleen stayed close. We spent most evenings sorting through old footage, converting our apartment's small second bedroom into a modest editing studio. I started a new channel, not under my name, but under a pseudonym. Just voiceovers, narration, faceless storytelling. It was called Silent Frame, and it went viral in under 2 months. Not because I advertised it, but because stories told without self-pity hit harder. My audience didn't know I was the man behind the ICU. They didn't connect my calm narration about recovery and trust to the drama that had flooded headlines months before. They just knew someone was finally telling the truth about pain in a way that didn't beg for attention. But the past has a funny way of knocking. One evening, as I wrapped up editing an episode titled "Forgiveness is Not Re-Entry," I received a parcel. Handwritten address, no sender again. I opened it slowly. Inside was a hardcover book. Title: While He Slept, The Art of Disappearance. Author, Mariah Claiborne. I stared at it for 5 full minutes. It hadn't been released to the public yet. It was an advance copy, likely printed through a vanity publisher or personal investment. A single sticky note on the inside cover read, "This is my final page, Nicholas. Burn it, frame it, quote it, just don't ignore it." I didn't open it. I boxed it, resealed the package, and mailed it straight to the district attorney. Let them have every piece of Mariah's confession, fictionalized or not. I didn't care about her words anymore. I cared about truth, and the difference between the two had finally become impossible to ignore. 2 weeks later, the DA added a charge to Harvey's docket, conspiracy to commit assault. Because the book's opening chapter described a moment, in cinematic metaphor, where a man behind the wheel chose acceleration over mercy. The writing might have been vague to a stranger, but to the court, it was a confession with frosting on top. Mariah's words finally served a purpose, just not for her. The day Harvey was sentenced, I sat in the back of the courtroom. No reporters, no cameras, just rows of cold benches and tired attorneys. The judge read the sentence: 8 years, no parole, felony conviction, permanent record. Harvey didn't flinch. He stared straight ahead, like it had nothing to do with him. But when they cuffed him and led him out, he turned to the room, and for the first time, he saw me. He smirked. "Guess you finally got your ending," he said. I stood. "No, Harvey, I got my beginning." He disappeared behind the door. That was the last time I ever saw him. Kathleen and I didn't talk much that evening. She brought takeout, I brought silence, but it wasn't the heavy kind anymore. It was the kind that lives between people who survived something sharp and decided to keep moving anyway. That night, I reopened my mother's old journals, ones I hadn't touched since before the accident. She used to write about people with incredible empathy, even the ones who wronged her. There was one line I'd underlined years ago, before any of this ever happened. When someone shows you their truth, don't try to rescript it into your fantasy. Mariah had shown me hers. And I had stopped rewriting it. A month passed. Then another. Until one evening, my phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize. Unknown. "Kathleen gave me your number. I know I have no right, but there's something I'd like to return in person." I stared at it for a long time. Then typed one word. "Time?" She replied with an address to a public park. Neutral ground. The next afternoon, I arrived 15 minutes early. Mariah was already there, standing alone, a small envelope in her hands. No makeup, no camera. Just her, looking like someone finally tired of performing. She handed me the envelope without a word. Inside was a USB, labeled, "Original Recordings, ICU Drafts." "Why?" I asked. "I used pieces of your voice," she said quietly, "to build sympathy, audio of you struggling to breathe, moaning in your sleep. I told people it was ambient sound, but it was real, it was you." I waited. I couldn't destroy it, she admitted. But I also couldn't live with it. I nodded. "So now I get to." She hesitated. "I know nothing I say matters." "You're right. I just wanted you to know that I left the industry, permanently. I sold the rights to my name, legally changed it. I work as a proofreader now. No one knows me there." I didn't congratulate her. I didn't nod. "Do you want to say anything?" she asked. I looked her in the eye. "Mariah died in that hospital room," I said. "What's left isn't mine to respond to." She blinked, but didn't cry, and I respected her more in that moment than I ever had before, not because of guilt, because she didn't beg. We walked separate directions. The USB I burned. That night, I sat at my editing bay and finally recorded the last entry in the Silent Frame series. I titled it, "Freedom Isn't Given, It's Reclaimed." I said, sometimes the people we love most hand us the weapon, sometimes they smile while doing it, but survival isn't about revenge, it's about turning pain into a compass and refusing to follow liars into the woods. I was unconscious for 4 days. She said that made her feel free. So I freed her from my money, from my silence, from my apartment, and finally, from my memory. I clicked upload, then I shut everything down, and I went outside for the first time in a long time without looking over my shoulder.